Yeah, I think it's always comes from my boundaries of imagination, you know, and I think I like to keep a limit to that. I think ever since I was a kid, I loved imagining. You know, that was just always one of the core things I did. And you know, growing up in Australia, Sydney, you have plenty of time to do so. You know, because just the environment allows you to just sit there, loaf around, and you know, really look at nature. There's a lot of crazy insects there, by the way.
Really?
I mean, the weather's great here too, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So, I love just the idea that Australia allowed me to kind of delve into that world. And you know, growing up, I kind of moved to a place called Wollongong. Have you ever heard of that place? Up there, I went to a performing arts school. And in that performing arts school, I think that's when I really started delving into, you know, music and art and all of that. You know, because I think essentially back then, when I was growing up, it was more about I wanted to fit in because I was the only Asian in that whole community. And back then, the scene of like metal rock music, that was like at its peak.
Yeah, that was cool.
Big metalhead, and you know, I still remember I wanted to fit in so bad, and the only way I could really see a close correlation to wanting to be with these people and the scene was through music. I didn't know it at the time, so I still remember going to my first youth center, like the first, you know, they have these youth center performances every Thursday and Friday. So local bands would come and they'll, you know, do their showcase. And I remember just tagging along with my mate, and oh boy, was I blown away, you know, quite literally, because the speakers were just like,
so loud, so loud, yeah,
so loud. And I think that's where that passion really started. I think there's like a certain energy and certain wavelength that connects you to something that's like heavy and deep, you know. That's why, like, ever since then, I would sleep with like heavy metal music in my ears, you know. It would just be my lullaby, you know.
I think it's the rawness of it.
It's the rawness of it, yes. It's absolutely the rawness. It's the messages that they deliver, you know, because I think more times than not, a lot of people are trying to find themselves in this world. I felt like rock was like one element that kind of spoke in a way where it's like you can express yourself and you don't have to really apologize for it. And you can certainly scream about it, you know.
Yes.
So that's kind of exactly what I did. And I did my own little local band. I started in a band, actually. I started as a drummer. That's where I started drumming.
What was was the band have a name? What was it?
Oh boy. I don't want to.
I'll tell you my band name if you tell me your band name.
All right, I'll go first.
Okay.
My own band was called Fire in May. That was the first name.
Fire in May?
Yeah, Fire in May. Yeah.
That's cool.
Just having to just bang on something, you know. And I think for me, I was like so compelled by just rhythm. Yeah. And I think that's what got my love into dancing.
Yes.
Ultimately, right? Because I think I needed to do something more with music, and I wanted to feel it. And I still remember, I think it was you know, when You Got Served came out. I think, do you remember that film?
Of course, of course.
Yeah, when I saw that, that was like a big eye-opening moment for me, and I was like, why are they like rolling on the floor? But it makes sense, you know?
It totally makes sense.
First of all, I like creating something, but I think it's more about how I love the idea of packaging, you know, because, you know, even back then, I think music was a way for me, like, it wouldn't have hit me the way where it hit me if it wasn't packaged like that.
Yeah.
Like if I wasn't thrown into like the cusp of like a hot pit where people are dancing and throwing punches, and then you have loud music and people screaming.
The whole experience.
The experience is what really packaged my love for a lot of things. And you can say the same thing about dance as well. So I think ultimately I got the idea of wanting to package things so I can transcend it to people, so they can feel it the same way, at least remotely, somewhat the same way that I feel it.
Yeah.
So I think even when I started dancing, it was just the idea of wanting to spread a message through dance. I'm sure it's like that for everyone too, but the love of it, but also wanting to express what you're feeling through the music, and hopefully getting that message across somebody that would get the same feeling, you know?
Yes, it's that connection.
Tutorials. And there wasn't too many, you know? But mind you, I wasn't even a professional. So I was like, I have to make these tutorials.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I was like, but I don't know with what confidence I did that, because I had just learned the move like the day before. So,
It's Incredible. Yeah.
So yeah.
Hey, you gotta fake it till you make it.
Yeah,
I
fake
love
it till you
that.
make
Yeah.
it. So I was like, you know what, I'll make it, and I did it, and then I should have named the steps better. I should have got the official names better because a lot of kids grew up watching my tutorials, thinking.
By the way, I've seen it, and you know what?
Oh, no.
I actually think you did a great job
thank
because,
you.
first of all, the videos are long.
Oh yeah, they're
Very long.
Definitely long.
A lot of dance moves in
A
there.
lot of dance moves. I had to be very descriptive, and yeah, but yeah, mind you, I didn't know what the names were called, and I just like, I gotta call it what I think it's gonna look like.
Yeah.
But then people grew up thinking that was a name, so yeah, I'm responsible for a couple of names for that.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, that was really where it all started compelling and started from. Yeah. So I think it was right around the time I did my first semester of uni.
Okay.
And the reason why I wanted to leave was, well, first of all, I'm Korean by ethnic background, but I've never really been to Korea, and I don't really know too much about my culture. So I just thought, one day I felt like it was like a calling. I kind of felt like everything aligned had I just gone to Korea. So I was like, now's the perfect moment. But my mum was a little bit adamant on me not going, obviously, because it's like you don't know anything about this country, and even if you are Korean, like you don't know how to speak Korean, and I was like, yeah, more so for the reason why I wanted to go. By the way, my mum was really supportive, and she made a deal where I was like, I had to make my own money to go, so it took me about a couple of months. I did all types of gigs and side jobs. Trust me.
Like what? I'd like
not
hear.
shady side jobs, by the way. Just putting it out there.
Like, please define side jobs.
Side jobs.
Yeah.
So like, I remember I had to like you hand out promos and pamphlets.
Yeah.
So the only thing was I didn't hand out pamphlets. They educate you on products. So, for example, I was educated on. I had to hand out chocolates. The only problem was in the job description they didn't say you had to dress up like a chocolate. So chocolate costume.
Okay. You were like a chocolate bar?
I was a chocolate bar. And I was walking around the city handing out chocolates, describing why they should eat this chocolate.
This is unbelievable.
So I did that for a couple of months.
Yeah.
I think the chocolate one was not too bad. The champagne one was where it got me. A champagne bottle.
You were a bottle.
Yeah, at a party, and I'll just pour. Yeah, trust me, you don't want to get there.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Knew I was doing that. I think she would have been adamant on me not doing that as well.
That's okay. It's hard.
Know a little, a thing or two about chocolates. You know, the in and outs.
Important things.
Important things.
Very important.
Important things. And because of that, I went to Korea.
Okay,
so
exactly.
I owe it all to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the first time when I was like 21, and going to Korea was such a bewildering experience because, well, first of all, it was like the first time I was like, wow, everyone's Korean, because I'm from Australia, so I'm more used to multicultural.
Right.
But it was the first time when I went and got off the plane, I was like, man, everyone's Korean. Like, what is going on? Mm-hmm. So it was a bit of a culture shock to me.
And you didn't speak any.
I knew how to speak like mum, like oma,
Okay, a couple of keywords.
Yeah, hungry,
okay.
like
important words.
Very important.
Did you know how to say chocolate?
No, I don't. I just said chocolate.
That's ironic.
Yeah, it is pretty. But you know what's funny? In Korea, the term for chocolate is chocolate.
Oh, okay. So that's anti-climate.
Getting off of that plane and coming to Korea, I could tell you it was like my world had just been flipped because, in Australia, you're very the environment is somewhat very prone to kind of I guess being very open-minded and being okay with that. So it's a lot of free thinking, a lot of free ideas that are allowed to roam and kind of grow.
Yeah.
But the thing about Korea is, because it's such more of like a unified nation, it's more of like if you stick out a little bit, you might be a little judged for that, because it's a little bit more challenged, I guess you could say.
I see.
There's a lot of pros and cons to that, but I think for the most part in Korea, that was the first time I got a taste of, man, I'm living in the real wild life now. Like, I have to like really kind of. It's the first time someone rejected like what I wanted to do, and it's a good humbling moment. And I will say those experiences are literally what made me today.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, yeah. Because from heavy metal to K-pop, that's
right.
It's quite a contrast.
It is.
I can honestly say when I first came to Korea, that's when I first, I guess, got a good whiff of what K-pop is. And in the beginning, I won't lie, it was very fascinating because for me it was like, oh, everyone looked very like a doll, you know, and they were doing these really like choreos that was just so on point, and it was so like stimulating, I guess is the right word. So when I first came, I was like, oh, I'll probably never do that, you know. And then slowly, you know how I said I felt like a calling when I came to Korea.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I kind of wanted to create a movement, you know, and it started off with dancing actually. But I wanted to create like a movement. I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to do something, but the only problem was I didn't have a audience
Right.
to do that. So I just thought, very simple, like K-pop, become an idol, you grow your audience, you know, and with that audience you can now go independent and do
Right.
something with that. So the first time I got that offer was when I was walking to the convenience store, and it's street casting. So they
Yes.
cast you on the street.
Wow.
This gentleman in a suit, almost a tuxedo, just, you know, came to me and he was like, hey, you know, how old are you? You know, asking all these like.
How old were you at the time?
I was at 21.
Okay.
Yeah, 21, going on 22, and he was like, "How old are you? What do you do? What, you know, do you have a job?" So I just thought immediately I'm getting scammed here.
Now, did he see you just?
That he gave me, mind you, I didn't know how to speak Korean that well, so he was like, "Oh, this conversation won't last too long. Here, take my card." So
Right.
he took the card, and on the card it was the company that I would later go into, called Yedang. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know at the time, but he was like, you should come to this spot the next day, tomorrow, at this time. So I just thought, I called my mum and I asked her, does she know what this company is? And apparently back in her time, speaking like she's a dinosaur. No, apparently in her era, that company used to be somewhat of a renowned
Right.
pop company, or you know, pretty big company or something. So she was like, yeah, you should so go
Pursue
to
that.
it.
Yeah.
So I was like, that I'll go back to Australia. So I was like, all right, I might as well go. And you know, I rocked up the next day to that place, and I just remember a huge line of about 40 to 50 people just standing in line. And some were rehearsing, some were dancing, and it looked like an audition.
Right.
And I was like, nah, because I just came in my flip flops, and you know, it was summer, so shorts and just Aussie style, you know. And
Yeah.
then, so I was like, nah, this isn't for me, because I just came with nothing prepared. And as I was about to turn back, the guy that kind of casted me was walking towards me.
And he recognized you?
Mate, you came. You just wait here, and you know, you'll be up next no time. So. I don't know, by nature, by force, by the universe, whatever, I think I just kind of stayed there, and it was my turn. And I still remember, you walk into the room and it's cameras like this set up, and there's like a table and there's like judges. It's quite
Wow, that's
quite
intense.
Ask your name and they say, you know, tell us about yourself. So I just said it in English, and they were like, what the heck? Like, can you speak Korean? I was like, oh, not really. So okay, so can you show me you know, the song that you prepared? So
And you had not prepared anything.
I was like, I was like, I don't have a song. It's like, do you know how to dance? I was like, yes. It's like, okay, show us the dance you prepared. I was like, I don't have a dance prepared. And they're like, what the heck? Can you freestyle? And I was like, oh, that's one thing I can do.
Okay.
It's like, okay, so do you have a song then? And I was like, no. And it's like, okay, so we'll use the contestant that went before you and we'll borrow his song. So I didn't know what the song was at the time, but you know Psy?
Yes.
You know he does like Gangnam Style and stuff.
Yes,
so it was
of
like,
course.
So it was like one of his songs
Okay.
that kind of emulated that. So,
Okay.
but I didn't know that it was like that. So then they turned the song on, and I was like b-boying to like Psy Gangnam Style, pretty much is what you can imagine.
Right. Okay.
I think they found it so hilarious that they wouldn't stop the song. So I was dying, like,
Is there a video of this?
yes, but I destroyed it.
Okay, I understand. I understand. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no, but yeah. So that's how I got in. That's
And you got it?
thing that was equally very, I guess you could say, is very innovative in a way where it kind of helped me grow.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's quite traumatic because it was a moment where I think systematically it put a lot of boundaries on what I thought I wanted to do and what I could do. Because in a sense, you're pretty much a product in
Right.
that sense. And you'd have to be okay with that to a certain extent. But I wasn't, because I was like a free kangaroo, free Billy, like running around, like I wanted to do things. And I just felt like it was now was the time I could finally like break out of my shell, you know, away from like my parents. I could just be rebellious, but now I had to conform to a certain type of order.
Position.
Yes. So I think from that experience, it taught me a few things. It taught me how to be resilient, how to stick through hard times and how to overcome it.
Yeah.
Without that, I don't think I would have ever learned how to be patient with myself.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a big moment.
What was
I would say, if I was being completely honest, I would say a lot of the moments were low. Like there weren't really high moments, because roughly around that time, I think I was trying to get along with the idea of my bipolar. But for me, I think I've always realized bipolar was something that could also be enhanced and be dismissed a little to a certain extent by its environment, right? So I think the environment that I was put in, just because by nature it wasn't really what I was used to, it shook my world up, and it like absolutely heightened the bipolar state. So I was really manic during the whole period of my K-pop days. But again, the pros was I had a very faster way of rehabilitating my episodes, and had I not been put on the spot to be able to face my episodes in the most extreme manner,
like the highest
stakes, you know what I mean?
You were
like
forced, like you had to.
Yes, like, you know, like do a little dance. Like, you know, it was just like I had to learn how to put on a face, you know, when the cameras are on, but you just had the worst day, you know, and you still have to smile while making chocolate, because the chocolate brings back traumatic memories. But you know,
I totally get that.
But
you were forced to create some sort of coping mechanism.
100%.
Wow.
And yeah, which looking back now, it's quite thankful. You know, I'm absolutely quite thankful for those moments. However, back then, you know, it was just like
traumatic.
So you can't process it, you know. So I think one experience was for sure like, you know, like our company was a little bit more adamant in terms of strict. So, you know, like it was a bit of a lot of shady things going on, you know, as the industry has. But there was like a moment where, you know, we would get absolutely cut down if, you know, when you go on those live music broadcasting stages and then you have like the red lights coming up. So every time so they have about like 5 cameras in different angles, kind of like how we're doing right now. And then the red lights would come on, and you would have to look at the camera, where the red lights are coming on.
Right.
So that's,
it was like a cue. It was
so I'm trying to do it right now, but if you miss that, if you miss your eye contact just for a little bit, you got to be prepared for hell when you go back down stage.
You were reprimanded.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Like, you know, and we were made
like a child.
Like a child. Oh my God, like a child. It was cruel in a sense, but I get it. Like, you know, they want to be absolutely
perfect, a certain way. The aesthetic is a certain thing. I get it.
Maybe that's why I'm a perfectionist. No, maybe not. But literally, I think that's what was asked of. So something to the highest order of perfection, which I get. Which I think that's what curated my patience and resilience for a lot of things. But I still remember, like, those, every time I see a red light come on, I'm like, my eyes just go.
A little bit PTSD. Yes, I totally get that.
You know, so it was quite fun, you know, it's quite fun, trust me. With knowing how to deal with certain people, knowing what type of people I kind of mesh really well with, and like why you don't really need to mesh with people, and why it's not that important, you know, you can't get along with everyone. So I think one good thing was it definitely helped me understand more about who I was, and that helped me understand my disorders. And further on, I think that's where my love for wanting to, again, I think I was at the lowest low when a lot of things were happening at my company, a lot of terrible things, and we disbanded, but I was still held to contract. And, you know, they call them slave contracts, where they hold you for about 8-9 9 years,
Wow.
and you're in debt. You don't make anything. You know, can't even like screech a little. But I'm sure a lot has changed now. But back then they had a lot of those, and you know, I was still under contract, and I think at that time I was like, we were filming one of our videos for our idol shoots, and I remembered I was more fascinated on how they shot it, as opposed to like me being
like performing.
Yeah, performing.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I've always had a love for packaging things.
Yeah.
What if directing and what if creating visual art is the next step for helping me learning how to package something? So I think that's where my love for directing and visual arts came in. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, and
you know, leading up to those moments, I met so many people that kind of helped curate this vision. You know, one of the first being somebody called Tarbin, you know, who was actually a avid follower of my b-boy days.
oh wow.
Can you believe that?
Oh,
So
it's extra special.
It's very special, very
Yeah.
special. And he would always just send me messages on YouTube back in the day, because you could directly message, like, hey, this is my progress of my b-boy, like learning from your tutorials. And I was like, oh God, not those tutorials. Yeah, and then magically we both ended up in Korea. And I think that was when the journey really began. And that interval where I had to go to the K-pop era and he had to go to the army, we had a little bit of a distant interval, and then we met back up. And I still remember I was at my lowest and I was like ready to give up. I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm just being force-fed like so much negative, you know, like nuances and all. For me, that whole experience at that time felt like everything was trying to channel me to being something that's not.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that shouldn't be allowed to do something. So I was more focused on like breaking.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think I dwell in chaos and I loved chaos, but it was just another extreme measure of like, granted it was probably because I was manic, but I was so like ready to just kind of blow the lid off and just be like, hey, you know what? If that's what everyone wants me to become, I might as well just conform to it, you know? And I think it was that moment in time where Tarbin, that friend, was like reminding me, hey, like, you know, didn't we set out to do this in the beginning? Like, let's go back to it.
That's beautiful.
And I was like, you know what? Screw it, you know, like, I guess it wouldn't hurt to give it one last shot. So that's when I started making video content. You know, it started off, I didn't know anything about video content. Mind you, there's such a systematic follow-up on like doing like a process to doing things. When you do something, like for example, like you have to do 5 years of coffee making to now be able to be a runner, and then maybe be able to touch lights and learn cameras. So there's such a system that I didn't have someone to really idolize in terms of like what do independent filmmakers do then? Like how do they get big? And because there was no blueprint for that in Korea, I was like, might as well do that, because I wanted to represent. So many artists were coming out. There were so many people that wanted to become artists, but there were a lack of people that wanted to do the creative vision and direction and you know, behind the scenes for it, because there wasn't a platform with that kind of enabled that light onto it. Because everyone thought if you wanted to become a director in Korea, you'd have to do 10 years of this, 10 years of that. And then by then,
like the hierarchy.
Yeah, you'll be like 40 and, you know, you'd have your belly out and something like that. Like, it'd just be like, that would be the image of it.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, you know, what if we can defy the norm a little bit? What if DPR can be a house of representatives for that independent idea of thinking? Because, mind you, I told you at the start, that was kind of almost not really heard of in Korea. The idea that if you wanted to do something, you don't have to follow a due process. You could just do it. You could just wing it, you know, and then it could be something due to its, I guess, elevation, like due to its, I think, genuine, core, you know.
Yes.
And thing is, DPR was something that I wanted it to be so genuine in terms of artistry, like being yourself, but I wanted it to also be something that could represent somebody that wanted to be themselves, but was like kind of on the edge of like, do I have to apologize? Do I have to explain myself? Art is art, you know. There's like a saying where, you know, artists are meant to defy our reality. You're meant to conform to your own reality and kind of not so much to as impose, but to kind of show what your idea of reality is and have people be on board with that. Because I'm sure in some type of approximation, it's going to closely relate to some people.
Yeah. There's a recurring theme here.
Actually, when I went from metal, I went from alternative punk and then metal and then went to grime metal and then I went to jazz. So then I started... went from like banging with the double kick to and then it went to like swings and I love jazz drumming so much. And I think it's so interesting that you point that out because that was, I think, one big part of my life that I didn't really revisit, but I didn't know how much of an impact that part actually was. So thank you for bringing that up.
I'd say you have revisited.
Yeah, I think I always say like the sonical aspect and the visual aspect comes hand in hand for me because that's what really comes from my imagination.
Yeah.
I think I was for me, the first time I think I was astounded by something visually so stimulating. I think it was when I first watched Cats.
Yes,
the musical. Oh boy, well, that came into town. Like,
first of all,
it's so interesting that you're right. You're absolutely right. I think the musical aspect was a huge thing when I was growing up. You know, I'll be very fortunate enough to go to these things. And what's really cool is my parents wouldn't tell me what I was going to. So I would have no idea I'll be rocking up to people dressed up in Cats costumes.
Yeah.
And I still remember like it was the first time I saw Cats and, you know, pre-show the cats walk around and they kind of interact with people. The cat came and like it was like this feminine cat that just laid down on my
like your lap,
in my lap, and then, you know, it was like stretching like a cat, and it felt so surreal because I knew it was a person, but I've never seen a person become a different character, and I think that's what sparked my imagination. That mixed with the theater aspect, the musical, you know, the notes to it, and you know, they had all these other musicals that came after that. Like I remember there was like a clown musical. I forgot what that one was, but you know, they had orchestra playing while like a clown was like being blown away and by a huge fan, and just that overtly stimulating scene was something that I wanted to capture and just not let go of. I just want to I just want to live in that moment.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Goes back to that experience.
Yes.
Because when you go to a Broadway, guess what?
Yeah. You know, I never really thought about that because I think for the most period of time when I was making it, I always feel like it has to do, like it does what it should do.
Yeah.
You know? So, and that really doesn't extend too much on the numbers, I think. Because for me, I feel like what I give is very bottomless. Like it's just the pit is endless. So I could just constantly keep on making, and it's like just a repertoire that I have. So I've never really felt the need for it to ever reach a certain number, maybe a certain crowd, because I think it's just more. I always say, I would rather have 10 people show up and have 10 people all stay than 100 people and just have 10 people out of
like
that
a superficial engagement.
Yes.
It's quality over quantity.
It's always. And you know, and I think because I think that's just so innately in me. I think I've always loved the idea of like there's no limit to what I do and what I give to people. And it doesn't feel like I'm really giving, and it just feels like I'm just exploring my world. Yeah, expressing, exploring my world, and just putting it out there. And it is absolutely, I think, a humbling moment too when I see. Also, it's such a grateful moment, obviously, when I have people like it's not just one, right? It's just it's like that amount of people like watching my stuff, supporting it, and honestly, that's who I do it for. At the end of the day. It's funny because in the beginning I did this for myself. I did this because I needed something to say. I had something to say. I needed to break out of my chamber. I needed to exert so much of that energy that I was compelling down and suppressing. And then once I had that all out, I didn't know like what it was doing to the people.
Right.
And it was the first time when after the show I would walk back to my to the bus, and on that little short journey to the bus and from the stage, you would have fans just running up to you and telling you how much your music and how much your artistry has changed their lives for the better. I think moments like that are moments that I live for, because I think in those moments is when I realize, oh wow, this isn't just about me anymore. Right? This is about everyone else too. So it really is something that's eye-opening, and it's what I realized as I further go into my journey of my artistry. It's like, wow, this is this is not just about my journey. It's everyone else's.
Well,
I've got to learn from you.
I mean, are you really going to a show if you're not crowd surfing? I mean, I don't know.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, stage diving, crowd surfing, you got to.
Yeah, that's the one thing I couldn't do, because I'm like, oh, no one's gonna pick me up. no one's gonna throw me.
You and I will go together.
So we have a very talented young man called Hugh, right? And he's like somebody that actually was somebody that helped me out in one of the music videos for Mido 2, and he did the dance for another choreographer, and they did something called Ribbon together. And I think from that performance, and when I saw this guy, he had so much passion and so much fire and so much potential. Like it felt like as if it was me back in the days when I had a lot to say, So, immediately we just kind of kicked it off, and this guy was so adamant on trying to help and wanting to show us what he can do, and our chemistry was just it took off, and ever since then he's been really, really helping us a lot with everything, not even just the choreo, like the direction, the stage direction, just the characterization.
He shares the vision.
And the fact that I can do that not with just him but with so many people on our team right now is what makes DPR DPR.
Oh, that's
yeah. Oh my goodness. So I have a project that I'm going to come out. Speaking of, like, I'm going back to my old roots, going back to rock and indie and metal. Well, I'm not
really.
I don't know about the metal stuff, but yes. So I have a character that personifies my music and my genre for like an era, So Mido, being the first 2 albums, is what classifies his era of that period of music, which is orchestra, like jazz and a bit of pop. And then Insanity, where we have a little bit of electro, dance, funk, and from the Daft Punk influence.
Of course.
And then it's going to go into the Ian album now. That's right.
I'm doing a slow...
Where we finally get to see Ian now.
Wow. Yeah. Just hearing your...
I didn't realize how much of a big moment that was, but you're right. It kind of felt like everything was building up to this moment. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So that... Okay.
I think I'm the most happiest I've ever been. I'll be honest.
Wow.
It took me a long time and a long way to come to get to this point for me to say that. And I think it feels like almost everything was leading up for me to come to this realization. And I think because I am in this moment and in this mood, I've also learned to understand how to be more present and savor the moment. Because back then it was really all about going, and even if I had something to say, there was some type of spite that was hidden behind everything, some type of anger and frustration. More importantly, I think with myself, and I just didn't know how to clear that, to be honest, because I felt like there's a lot of things wrong with me, but everything that I was trying to advocate for myself, I just felt like I wasn't even living it. So how was I ever going to be able to, like, it felt more hypocritical, But I never really understood where the answer could come from. Like, I didn't know how simple it was. I always thought it was more impossible than possible when it came to me. So I've always had to clearly indicate that this was more than me and not about me. And I think because of that, I went through something so spiritual where it was like, like, do I have to just be treat myself as a messenger? Not so, and nothing is personal, and because the reason, the minute I make it personal, that's when a lot of the fury, the spite, and anger,
that's the ego.
That's the ego speaking. And the minute I cleared that, and the minute I started to accept that, it felt like giving felt so much more easier, and because you don't need anything back. Because the whole idea of giving is like you don't really ask for something back, and it felt like such a clarifying moment for me that I don't know, for some reason it was just more uplifting, and ever since that I just started seeing my team and the people around me, and it kind of brought me to a whole new light and a senses of like who they were and why they were here and why I was here and why we were here together. And yeah, it was a very empowering moment, I could say. And because of that, I can honestly say I'm the happiest I've ever been.
I'm sitting here beaming maniacally.
Yeah. Oh, I think definitely Daft Punk's albums, because that was the first album I listened to, Discovery. That was the first album I got my hands on. My dad bought it for me one day, and he was like, "Hey, this is music," and I was like, "Okay," and that first time, because back then we had like stereo speakers, and
this is like, well, they came out like in 01.
It was a little elementary kid. The first song, one more time.
Yes.
And just is that repetition. I don't know why, but the progression of that just kind of, I couldn't step away from it. And then my grandparents would just be knocking their heads off because I'll just be repeating that.
They're like, enough.
Like, just stop. Like, one more time. I'm like, one more time.
It's an undeniable song. It's an instant anthem.
Yes.
I love Daft Punk, and Homework, which came out in 1997, is like Around the World,
Around
and
the World.
Defunk. Like,
The Funk.
I did that with those songs, and then followed up with One More Time. I mean,
it was something,
I know.
Yeah.
All hail Daft Punk to this day.
Yeah,
and
I
they're
agree.
constantly evolving and just putting out cool stuff, teaming with Nile Rodgers and Pharrell Williams.
Oh
it
my!
never ends.
It never. Yeah, innovators.
Total innovators. And so are you.
Oh,
yes. So that makes sense.
Well, I appreciate that.
What is something?
I would love to meet. Oh goodness. Like Moby was somebody that I would love to meet. Yeah. The thing about the collaboration thing is, I've always wanted to do that, and I felt like, because there's such a time and a place for, I think, when I wanted to do it. I've always been fascinated with obviously genre blending, and I think it was just more of the idea of like, we would never imagine you to be collaborating with someone like that. And I think it was just building worlds. So something where it could kind of channel something that's quite interesting and intriguing. I've always been very open to it. And I've always loved the idea of wanting to collaborate also with, also big names, but also people that are just starting off, that have yet to be discovered. And I've always wanted to build something with people like that, and
that's amazing.
So that's always, that's still going to be something that's on my to-do list. And
that's beautiful.
Sometimes when in my mind I have everything planned out, and it's a schedule that only I know, right? It's like, it's the chaos that only I can draw order from. And I've always felt some sort of like anxiety every time something like that goes disarray, and I think that fear of the chaos that I have in order might become a little ajarred, is always what struck fear in me. And I kind of think about it, and I think, is it because I don't know what I'm so scared of? Like, I don't know if it's me trying to be too much of a perfectionist to that side, or I don't know really where it comes from. But I guess that also entails letting go. Letting go of things. Yeah.
Letting go.
Oh boy. So I do like, for me, it's always, for some reason, I don't know why I have like such a dark aesthetic, but I've always had a bit of like that darkness in me, like, so I've always liked more of like the dark tone, thing. And a lot of people think like I get a lot of influences from The Crow.
Yes, I totally
and
see
I loved it. And it's another thing where I think it's because I was so attracted to that dark aesthetic as a
Mm-hmm.
kid. Like Tim Burton's Batman,
The best.
Yeah, like all of those things, like Beetlejuice, like all of those things growing up watching those things, I think attained to my fashion sense and my fashion style. And we have an amazing stylist, which is not here in this room right now, but he supports that idea, So the whole character of Mido was born from that, and it really does come from that sense of like something dark, but something very beautiful about that dark chaos. Yeah.
Also, the crow.
Mom has a field trip with me tattooing myself. I think at this point she's like, I kind of think she might not recognize if I got another one because I got so many, but she always recognized. She's like, "You got another one?" I'm like, "Mom, doesn't it not make a difference if you want?"
Well, I was gonna say, I feel like you're, but you know what it is? All tattoos are beautiful because it's a form of expression. I love when people express themselves.
Yes.
However, your tattoos are objectively really beautiful.
Oh, really?
I can you talk to me about your neck?
Yeah, so this one's the butterfly. Actually, this one was a promo for something that I think is yet to come out. So this is a little teaser thing. Yeah, this is
okay.
Yeah, but this is the first time we're actually announcing it here. But this is something that was, our fans love a bit of they're a bit of a theorist. So we love lore building, and we have like a bit of like a story of ourselves, our universe. And I love to drop in a lot of hints and a lot of clues via tattoos like this, and via just like little, those messages that you put up. Yeah. So I love putting up little like hints and things for fans to follow along, and this is one of them. Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll be yet to reveal it. Can't reveal it yet, but
soon.
But very soon. Yeah.
Storyline. Mido actually is completely aware of Ian's presence and his actually future self. The Mido movie, the Mido 2, the movie part 1, that's present day. So that's when insanity has gotten to the point where he becomes almost ethereal. So
which is the white outfit, correct?
Yes. He's gotten to the point where he is now, I guess you could say, final form.
Yeah.
And he's just he's gone completely insane.
Right.
And underneath all of that is his two blind eyes.
Right.
So he's completely blind, meaning.
Is it because he doesn't have to see because he's beyond at this point?
Yes, he's beyond. So yes, that is correct. He's beyond to the point, and this is kind of again in the real, I guess, metaphoric aspect. It essentially entails, the more I stay longer in my mind, the more I lose a grip of reality. It has happened a few times. I sometimes wake up because I lose it, and this is, and what I mean by these trips to the other side is lucid dreaming.
Right.
So finding a loophole into your dreams and walking around and going deeper and deeper and deeper. But when you wake up, I sometimes don't know if I'm dreaming or not. And that's when it becomes, I'd say, somewhat dangerous, because there were times where I would go take the elevator, go down to the first floor, and then I'll wake up and I'll be completely and that's kind of when I was like, oh my goodness, lock all the doors.
Yeah, like anything could have happened. Yeah, I gotcha.
So I'm again, I'm learning the do's and don'ts of a lot of these things, but just putting that into the form of a concept now. It's, the doors are kind of essentially what I really do dream about. And I'll tell you something very interesting. I sometimes dream as Maya, and I dream as me. But there are moments where my dream as Maya, I'll remember what that dream is. And my dream is me. So it'll be essentially like I'll be almost intruding on his dream. So it's a very interesting concept.
Yeah.
And and it's funny because I won't remember it as me. But when I switch as Maya, clear as day, I know exactly, and he'll say, I know exactly what he did in the dream. So that's another part of the conscious mind that I've
Yeah.
no explain. And doors were always the quote unquote just traumatic experiences that I
I was
love.
literally gonna ask that question because I
That's
have so many.
the reason why.
So I get why insanity is trying.
Real life wise, it's to, I don't even know what I'm opening. So a long time ago, this is how it started. It never was about doors.
Mm.
It was about revisiting certain places that made me feel something. So I always, dream wise, it doesn't. I don't draw up a memory map of what I went through the past, but I draw up something that's conceptually different, but it makes me feel like what I felt in that. So,
Yeah.
you know how, for example, when you smell something, but
Yes. Takes
smell
you
brings
back.
similar,
Absolutely.
similar. So when I found that out, and again, and this is the real life now. I think it was a year before I was, I would say, knocking on too many doors, and it got to the point where I would just switch all of a sudden, and mine would just, he would punish me in a way, but he would make a statement to stop opening the doors.
Yeah.
And that's when it became a concept. That's when I decided, I mean, I don't know if that was the right move, but this is what I mean why it's it's a real thing for me. And in Soy Dance, like you said, insanity is yet insanity, to be frank. He's
Right.
taking the form of insanity, but he is not yet insanity. And out and the green is, it's interesting because the green plays a huge aspect to this as well. Um, yeah, again, it's what Midas is essentially really trying to do is not kill insanity, because by killing him,
Yeah.
he needs to exist in all types of forms.
Right.
And maybe that might, just theoretically cure the DID if it was like that. I would
If it
remain
was like that, yeah. But at least in the lore aspect of things.
the raw aspect of the things.
Yeah.
That essentially is kind of what he's careful of, I guess you could say.
Mm.
Because again, Myra is completely aware of insanity, being Ian, the very first Ian.
Yeah.
And just for funsies, we wanted to bring the whole context of the time to something that it goes back way earlier. So when you have the quill, the quill that it's actually in more of those medieval times that Ian existed.
Yeah.
So in terms of the lore, it's not modern day, and he goes back from way back. But when he breaks into these worlds, we don't know how long he's actually been there for.
Mm.
So later on, the story develops in a way where he wakes up in the modern world, but he's
Okay.
of what is real and what's not. So that's later, and I don't know how much I'm exploring, but to be frank, the door aspect was, the more it goes in, the more he loses a sense of anything, and the more he then becomes insanity.
Mm.
Um,
Which I guess would make sense because one of my other questions was,
it's funny because he picks up, he doesn't know himself, but he's yet somewhat feeling different. So every single time he goes through the doors, he loses a bit of his sanity.
yeah.
Later on, we see his final version where he's completely, I guess, masked up, but then underneath is he's all glittered up, and you see two eyes that are just missing. It's very brief, but his body holds the universe. That's why you have all this glitter, and he takes off the clown.
Like in Seraph.
Yes, in Seraph, that's
Yeah.
the moment where he's literally, his presence is just completely, just it's not real.
Yeah.
And
It's otherworldly at that point.
and the present day is what you see as like, so beautiful, and all these music videos, and you see the Ians that are in that are essentially Insanity's products. And Mido is on his way to ultimately, people might think he might be there to like kill the clown god, or it's essentially to stop him
Right.
from.
Just to stop him.
Well,
Yeah, true.
yeah, I don't want it like a chess type of thing. It's because I wanted it to resemble Pandora's box.
Okay.
It was essentially entailing the idea of, again, he's opening Pandora's box, and with it, he can, the power that insanity really has is completely jarring, because later he can.
Editor Anitra here. I'm not exactly. Yeah.
When I go there, I'm like, no, this is not how. It just doesn't feel right, and we'll just switch it over, and who knows what comes out, and of that moment. So a lot of times, my team really does do the hard pulling when it comes to scheduling, and it is I can't do it. I can't do it for the life of me. I just cannot do something like that. My mind just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful to have people that can do that for me. It makes my life a lot easier. But yeah, we do go in. We know exactly what we want. I'm so thankful that I have a team that's completely professional. So like even my DP and obviously all the creative directors and the ADs, and they just know exactly what I want, because we've been working on this project for years.
So long, yeah.
So not only are they passionate about just doing this in general, or doing what we love doing, they're extremely passionate about the storyline, Mido.
Yeah.
And they're so invested. So they're like, and I'm really thankful, because I have people that know the storyline better than I do. Come back and I'm like, what was it again? Because I'm not too sure sometimes, but
it's a lot.
people that just script it, and it's nice. It's really nice to have that.
But what for your side of things?
Because again, the more I do, the more I find the don'ts, and it's such a learning curve for me, because there was a moment in time where I think it's for Diamond Tea Pearls. That was the first time I switched on without any warning, and I think that was one of the most traumatic experiences yet.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't even something that I shot. It wasn't something that so I was working with a team that was third party, and I was completely fine. And it just, next minute I'm in the bathroom. So it was just moments like that it's just, I think I'm learning as I'm going as well. But, my team has a lot of precautious, well, I guess a drill, I guess you could say, when they think I'm not right. First thing is, cut the Wi-Fi. This man online, rightfully so. So
Absolutely.
I've had my slip-ups here and there, but again, because people don't see that as a switch. They see that as oh, this guy's off his meds, or he's completely drunk.
Yeah.
But so I mean, so yeah, again, it's off goes the Wi-Fi, and and it's surveillance. So I feel for my team. I can't believe the things they put up with me.
Well, obviously, you are the type of person that they very much care.
Not recently, but we've always known, or in our team, that in order to get to Mido, we'll go to the phase of insanity.
Right.
But it's we kind of thought, mind you, like my manic highs get to a point where sometimes it just concludes where it's a very good high feeling.
Right.
And there are moments where it gets I would say you go a little bit insane, meaning you get a little too crazy. But if that moment is triggered by something that is very negative, or I would say something.
Insanity isn't necessarily.
So in the real life, it works that way, but in the story, it works the other way. So backwards. It's something that you've, I think, caught very interestingly. It was that one scene,
like 2-second scene, which I think I just related. I always relate Mido to black and white.
Yes.
That's
so
the scene, though. Okay.
I don't know if you want.
Did I actually? No, I don't know if I referenced that or if I caught it to that extent. But I definitely paused on that, and I was like.
And you said something about it looks like. So essentially, that's kind of what it is. You're right, and that's kind of what really shocked me, because. So what happens in the story before is, you know how he wakes up from the grave. So what happens is, so the green pulls him out, you know, and before that, he's on what looks like a bed, and you have these things coming out, and he opens too many doors, and he gets into the wrong door.
And these are the doors, for just a visual example. These are the doors, for instance, that we would see in Peanut Butter and Tears.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Peanut Butter and Tears is the very early stages
Right.
of Ian. Essentially because, you know, he looks completely fine, and you know, but so it was a character that I was like, man, I want to develop it, but it's like it would be such a dangerous thing to develop if I had to really play that part.
I was about to say, because like
it works the other way.
It's just the easiest thing someone can relate to it.
Relate to it, like Frankenstein.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you know, it's alive, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I wanted to put in.
Are you still in, like, when you release the next thing?
I think you'll see it and you'll know.
Okay. Yeah, don't tell me everything. I gotta be able to like analyze the video and figure it out myself.
Like, oh, okay, I get it. All right, yeah.
Super cool.
How fast I can just kind of do it is music. But maybe that's why I'm the most critical of myself when it's music. It's funny because videography, I know it's something that I can see visually, and I can only, so it takes a lot of time. For me, I've curated that over so many years, but music, I think, is something I've always loved, but I haven't really curated it just yet.
Yeah.
I hear things, but sometimes the reason why I think I'm so critical about that is evidently because of my switches, or because I'm not present a lot of times when I make it. So when I kind of resort to these characters, and these characters make certain songs, and when I make it, it becomes like it's so funny. It's ironically, you do become your own biggest critic, and
yeah,
and quite literally
in more ways than one. And yeah, I gotcha. Okay, that's so interesting though. Okay, well, you're editing. I've said it in every video. I'm like, Jesus, this is like, really? I could barely figure out how to work OBS. Okay, like
it's a good question. I think courage. I think for me, I've always been in the regards of like not being too apologetic for being who you are. I think that was just the one thing that like disregarding just like mental disorders. I think just as a person, I've always thought you shouldn't apologize for just being who you are. And again, it comes from like a motto that my mom used to really just kind of ingrain into me. It was like, you know, be yourself always. And it's as simple as that, you know. It's that's why I think when it came to something like talking about my struggles, and I've never really, you know, as ironic as that is, I've never really narrowed it down to it being the problem with me. I mean, I've always tried to, and I think in the earlier stages of my life, I tried to fix it. But I think the more and more time went on, I realized it's a part of me. And for better or worse, it is me at the end of the day. And it does, you know, I think for me, I think it always helps any individual become stronger. And once you overcome it, I think it's, you know, I think we're too focused sometimes on a lot of the negatives that it reflects on us, that we sometimes forget all the good that really does come out of it. And I really do see it as a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
And I think that's why for me, I think it's, you know, first and foremost, when I had to announce that to so many people in the world, yeah, I did have a lot of fear. It wasn't like, oh, you know, I'm super like,
not easy, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like this is like the easiest thing. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was because, again, we're all human, and I think we all are somewhat scared of revealing too much about ourselves. It's, you know, again, for whatever reason, if it's too ever exposing, you know, you might like I said before, I mean, I get embarrassed a lot, you
Yeah.
know, and I do. So it's having to just learn with the idea that it is yourself, and I think that's completely fine. And you know, not everyone's perfect, and I don't even know what that word means sometimes. I think,
There's no such thing. Let's be
yeah,
real.
again, like pushing that agenda of being perfect, I think being imperfect is the new perfection, you know. And I think that's kind of what I thought my role was meant to be when I had to be so transparent and be that person that was vulnerable. Not because I, you know, it was like, oh, like this is the only option I have, but no, it's I chose to do that.
Yeah.
And again, like I told you before too, it was I'm still like somewhat semi confused sometimes. I do
Yeah.
second guess myself, but you know, if you have people around you, I think at the end of the day that support you, you know, and it doesn't have to be like people that you've known for so many years, and you know, um, there's always going to be somebody that you know
Yeah.
look out for you. And I think if that person makes you feel important enough, you know, I think that's really what matters. And you know, you should be yourself, and you should be completely fine. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. So
I love that. Thank you.
no worries.
So it says, oh, this one I thought was super interesting. I loved this one.
No, that's always for me too. It's kind of nerve wracking because it's someone that I've always admired too,
Mm.
and for him to like want that, you know, it was yeah, extremely grateful. And again, I was like, wow, really, me? Like,
I
so
know. I was about to say, I was going to follow it up with what do you think when people, like, you hear
I,
them mention your name or.
I can't get used to it, you know. I really can't get used to it. Um, I don't know why. I just can't get used to even people recognizing me on the streets. I've never really got familiar with that. Um, exchange or the idea of it. So that's why I never ever resort to turning anyone down. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I don't think I'll ever um, like be like no to somebody that just wants a picture, or you know, or I sometimes I'll see some fans that um, might be like they might be too I guess worried that they might be intruding, and I'll tell them, I'll go up to them and I'll be like, you know, let's take a picture, and I'm like, oh, I hope I don't force that on them, but you know, I just want to because it feels me, and then you know, it feels someone that I admired. I would want that person to do the same for me. So um, just just thinking like that, rightfully so. That's kind of why I don't know. I mean, really me, you know, and
Yeah.
then
That's how
that's
I
just
feel when you said you like my reactions. I'm like,
you know, it's so fun because it's very aligned with what we're doing right now too.
yeah.
So
It's crazy.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
You know, I, I wanted to make this, you know, really worthwhile for you too, because again, it was again, like I said before, I've always wanted to really engage with all of the people that were like interested and just you know had so many questions, and you know,
So many questions.
I was like, oh, you know, I wasn't want to be like, yes, you're right, you know, but I couldn't, you know, tell you directly. But
Yeah.
I've always wanted to have that chance to be like, you know, you're nailing everything on the head. You know,
Yay.
what you're doing is amazing, and it is inspiring, honestly. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
think I think you're right. I think the first album, um, I would say zombie pop, but that's like you're like asking for something completely different later on.
Yeah.
No, but I would definitely start from Minor One because I think the fun in what I make is even there are people that get into me like with the more recent songs and stuff like that. It's always I think a extreme fun endeavor for me because if you go to the first album, it really does. It's just like a timestamp of like the process that I went through,
Yeah.
and I yeah, any new listener, any new fan, you know, if you want to just not necessarily be completely indulged in the lore, but just more like if you want to see just the process of it, and you'll gradually feel it. I think yeah, from the first album, second, and then obviously to Dear Insanity right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. That's what I thought too, but
yeah.
I never know.
Like you know, we get to actually talk with the fans, and you know, they get to tell me their stories of, and it's honestly, I think that was like the moment of I think shock, but at the same time, like, wow, like this is a huge relief that, it's kind of like what I've wanted my music to take course in, and just hearing like what type of effect it had on a lot of these dreamers, it was just like, wow, like that's insane. Really? Me? Like it was like one
And
of those
hopefully
things.
validation for you that like
Yeah.
what you're
You were like this, but it turns out, you're a little more trouble than we thought, but I've never really put that as like
yeah.
I never said I was this or so. I mean, it is something that I'm also getting used to, but if it's helping people and if it's doing something naturally that, again, people are finding comfort in, then yeah, it's absolutely worthwhile. I think I wouldn't bat an eye to like, or like, regret any of the things that I've done.
Yeah.
Has it been a challenge? Yes, it always
Of
has. And
course.
it's
Well,
something
there's
that
a vulnerability to it as well, and like in exposing so much, and you don't want people to like take advantage of you because of that and
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, yeah. And, yeah, it's yeah, definitely a challenge. I think I'm learning as I go, I have, like I mentioned before, but I only have like just certain people that I can talk to about this in my actual life. If not two, like one maybe. So
yeah,
for me, like I think I've realized there's just a lot of power in having just people understand you.
right,
Not necessarily like it doesn't have to be to a T, but is I guess willing to kind of go to the lengths of like wanting to understand it. And I think for me that was never I don't know. I just never thought that was a realistic option for anybody because I thought, like, like why would I want to bear somebody with that type of burden?
yeah,
And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. A lot of people would think, uh, you know, there's I rather somewhat deal with it myself rather than putting a hand out because it might put somebody else's thing in um, I don't know, like jeopardy, or like it might put somebody else's in a lot of stress. And I've been like that forever.
yeah,
And you might miss, and I think that's a common mistake with being independent. I think that's a being independent is one thing, but I think if you're able to ask for help while being able to manage, I think that's also part of being dependent.
yeah,
Yeah, I think again, it's not wrong to be dependent on somebody, um, if you know what you're asking for, and that person's just again, as long as you're not scamming anybody, like
yeah.
you're like, but again, it's I'm learning as I'm going, and
It's
it's
interesting because I just related that to just like me, like,
I mean a lot of people appreciate that too.
well,
So
thank you.
thank you.
I guess my last question, so I can like,
I was just curious. I was always curious about what made you, I guess, what piqued your interest in, I guess, wanting to find out about, I guess, even just Mino in general, because I think it's just more like what really fascinates you about this, because I don't know, for someone like me, I've always thought that was an interesting thing to just be like, it's not an interesting, a hard thing for anyone to really just kind of delve into,
yeah,
which is why I've always like was a little bit like second guessing if I'm being a little too exposing of this, because at the end of the day, it's not something that I kind of imagine people really getting into.
right.
Right?
Um,
Um, what people might have thought, because
yeah,
I think I was always against that grain. It was more, again, maybe because again I never would have imagined that, but that's so insightful, because um, for me, what I feared was if it's too real, people might not enjoy it,
yeah,
because
and
maybe
that
people,
you
yeah,
never know how other people might take it. Of course,
I
this is,
agree. I agree. But I just never thought that other factor would have even existed. So
yeah,
even just yourself alone, I think for me that's really worthwhile, because um, again, it's something that I'm kind of discovering as myself. But it's so funny because we call it a journey, but for me, legitimately, it really is. You have like it's kind of like you have front row seats to my journey, and it's and like I think it's a no-brainer the minute I did sign myself to expose myself to the world anyway
yeah,
as a figure. I mean, it's like you are out there anyway, and
yeah,
might as well just be like authentic with it. And I think for me, it's such a funny thing when people, I like, here's the thing. I understand when people get famous now and then they feel like their privacy is being almost like, intruded.
Right.
But I think for me, I think it's a level of understanding of like, oh, I mean, I did sign up for this, and if I'm going to do this, I want to do it properly.
Yeah. You're putting it out there on your terms.
Yes, yes, and I don't want to just do it, just for the sake of doing it. And I'm not going to rap or sing about certain things that I don't relate to anyway. So, it has to really be specifically things that I want to express and be personal about.
Right.
And for me, I'm just a do or die type of person. So it's like I'm gonna go straight just for the I don't know, what do you call it? I'm gonna go like, what do you call that? Um,
Go for the gusto, just goes, yeah.
or I'm not gonna do it at all. Like it's either that option or this. So again, it just goes back to the whole like, be yourself. And my mom always told me to be myself, and don't apologize for it.
Yeah,
I don't think
absolutely.
what makes this any different.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I think, again, from that first question you asked, it was it's just tailing back to that. It's like um I never said I had like the answers for things, but I'm figuring it out. But I've never apologized for who I was at the end of the day. And I don't think anyone should. You know, you're different every single moment of your life. What mistakes you might have made in the past, I mean, it's the you then, and you're forever growing. So how can you constantly be judged on for every single moment?
Yeah.
But again, it's the world we live in, and certain things that I can't really change, but it's we're all trying. And again, if it wasn't for like the reactions that you do, I would have never have known on any insight on like how people are receiving things and how that makes me feel. So I think it's again it's I'm extremely grateful, and that's something that I enjoy, and my whole team enjoys it. Like we all sit down and we watch it. We all know who you are.
Oh God, that's so weird.
So much.
Well,
I think I'll do that if you don't mind.